a PowerPoint. And I want to welcome everyone to our annual Leadership Summit and Pre-PET session. During pre-pandemic times, we would normally have this in person. During the time of the planning of this summit, Omicron was surging. So we felt that in the name of safety, it would be best to connect one another virtually. Although we would love to be together, you know, there are advantages to being virtual as well. So we've got 91 registrants on today's call. We have people connecting in from all over the world. So there's a registrant from the Philippines, one from India. There are several from California. We have some non-Rotarians on the call today, including my brother. And so I've told people in the, as we were chatting, that my brother is not a Rotarian, so I'm hoping to inspire him to move forward in that way. So if you want to heckle him in the chat area, feel free to do so. His name is Jerry Geiger. At this point, I am going to screen share. And also just in the way of housekeeping duties, if you could keep yourself muted unless you're asking a question, feel free to use the chat widely. You know, maybe you've got some fundraisers you want to advertise. This is a great platform to advertise things going on in your club. So feel free to put a link within the chat area. All right, I'm going to screen share at this point. There we go. All right, so this is the layout of our Leadership Summit and Pre-PETs today. We're going to have 3 separate sessions. Our keynote on past District Governor Nabil will be going first. We'll take a break. We'll then have our own Barry Buckingham from the Rotary Club of Colonial Park. We'll do a district budget approval and a break, and then a president-elect session. I do want to welcome some of the district leaders that are on this call today, including District Governor Greg Staub, District Governor nominee Fred Gellert, District Governor nominee designate Paul Thompson. We will all be in control of the Zoom room throughout this session. We will also save the chat and make sure we email it to all participants, because you may want to advertise different things. There may be some links. So we'll make sure we save that and distribute it after the session. On today's call, we have also assorted assistant governors and leaders of various committees within our district. So welcome to everyone. For those of you who are not Rotarians who may be on the call, I do want to explain a little bit about, you know, who we are. And so we as Rotarians are an international organization comprised of 1.4 million members and many, many clubs throughout the world. And our primary focus is service, but it's so much more. In the service aspect of Rotary, we do have 7 different areas of focus. So it's a very diverse group of places that we offer our service in, including disease prevention and treatment. And that is my background. I'm in healthcare, I'm a nurse, water, sanitation and hygiene, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, community economic development, environment, peace building and conflict prevention, which is the focus of today's session. We also have core values within Rotary: fellowship, integrity, diversity, service, and leadership. Each of you may be drawn into Rotary by maybe an individual or a friend who said, hey, you have to come, we're a great service-oriented organization. But once you join Rotary, you probably found so much more than met the eye. So this is a schematic that I think is very cleverly done for, you know, what maybe the community and maybe what you saw when you first joined Rotary. Maybe you thought, okay, yeah, I'm service oriented, I want to connect with people. I love the quality of people in Rotary and the social aspects, but the longer you're in Rotary, the more you see what's below the surface. I've certainly, during my 9-year journey in Rotary, in elevating to the position of club president, realized the engine of Rotary and how well done their leadership development training is. That has helped me in my professional life and in my personal life. There's really fantastic training related to teamwork and communication skills, collaborations and networking with not only locally, but internationally, building new friendships and connections. You name it, we've got opportunities in Rotary. So at this point, I'm going to stop the screen share and I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, past District Governor Nabil Oudeh. So Nabil joined Rotary 27 years ago with the Rotary Club of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. He is the founder of the Center for Conflict Resolution International and is CEO of Observa, which is a leadership development firm. Nabil is passionate about Rotary and our mission to serve and heal the world. He has been very active and is committed to developing Rotary leaders around the globe. He has held a variety of leadership positions at all levels of Rotary, from RI President's Representative, International Training Leader and Support at Rotary RI Assemblies for the past 3 years, General Chair of the Zones 28 and 32 Institute in Niagara Falls in 2019. He was District Governor of District 7040 in 2016 and 17, which comprises Northern New York, Eastern Ontario, and Western Quebec. He's a frequent speaker and presenter at Rotary International conferences, institutes, training assemblies, president-elect training, RILA and Rotaractor conferences. He's a multiple Paul Harris Fellow +9, a member of the Bequest Society, and a major donor to the Rotary Foundation. PDG Nabil is the recipient of the 2020 Donald McRae Peace Award for advancing goodwill, understanding, and peace around the world. Nabil and his wife, Gail, a Rotarian, live in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. They have 2 adult children who live in Australia and Toronto, Canada. Please join me in welcoming past District Governor Nabil Oudeh.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you, to engage you this morning. There's a couple of people I have known in this group, which is I'm so happy to have you here and see you. And I really it's a very important topic for us in this day and age. And as Rotarians, we're not really immune in a sense from issues and challenges that we face in general society and the world around us. And I think it is really important for us to speak openly and look at how we can actually deal with it and manage our issues. For me, this morning, what I would like to do actually is a couple of things. One is to kind of talk in terms of general experience that I've had with some challenges in at different levels of Rotary. For those of you who are not Rotarians, it's a great, wonderful organization, but we work very hard at really, as I said, really healing the world and taking care of things. But because we are such nice people, sometimes we don't like to deal with conflict very much. So, but that's, I think you'll see that. And those of you who have been Rotarians, you really appreciate that. And the reality for all of us, we are fundamentally a volunteer organization at all levels, from our president of the whole, spiel, as we say, from the whole organization all the way to the frontline member. We're all volunteers. There's a handful of staff in Evanston, Illinois, and a couple of other places in Europe and India, but that's really it. So kind of, if you look at the ratio of employee to Rotarian, I think it's 1 to 1,500. So it's not, so we really rely on each other. And that's what sometimes presents a challenge for us as we deal with issues and challenges, because we are volunteers. And it's very hard to, for lack of a better term, to fire a volunteer or reprimand a volunteer, or to say, Nabil, your behavior really is not that appropriate, or in a blunt Nabil language, your behavior sucks, you know, and you need to shape up. You will tiptoe around it. We'll say, well, you know, sometimes when you say this, people don't feel comfortable. When you make those kind of jokes, it's not really, and we kind of belabor it so much to the point that the person doesn't get the message. You know what I mean? I mean, I think that's one of those things that always I'm very mindful of. And as as DG Juliet said, I've been around Rotary for quite a while by now, and I have different things, and it's really a point of privilege. And some people say, "What privilege?" But it is a privilege in a sense because I get to support Rotarians around the world with their issues. So at all levels, from the senior to the club level, and I think it's really important for as I look at this and having these experiences that I really know that what Juliet just shared about our values and core are really important to all of us. And I think sometimes if we keep reminding ourselves, this is what's really important to us, is actually these values and these principles by which we come together on, I think we'll be in better shape. But that's part of the issue we have to kind of remind ourselves of. And so for me, it's one of those things. I always talk about Rotary in a way that thinking of it as and again, I don't be, you know, kind of, but it is really like a family. And I really mean it. Because I do travel the world, and you know, you have this extended family, you come from this big extended, and everywhere you go, you'll find a home. And I think there is that goodwill that exists within the Rotary world between us and amongst us. And I have to say, I've been in strange places in my life and was received like literally like a family member, and in the most like really places that I would never feel like that's so different than me, from my upbringing, from where I am, but yet that there's a connection there. So it's that all really established. One thing I want to share with you is just to kind of like some of those issues that we look at and we deal with. And I want to give you tangible skills this morning. I just don't want to give you a speech and say, well, you know, we are amazing and look at the 4-way test and we love the world. And that, you guys, you know, you live it, you experience it. I'm going to give you some very concrete things to walk out with this morning and going, okay, you know, this guy came in, blah, blah, blah. He talked a lot, but at the end of the day, I learned something. And I want to give you something, as I said, really tangible, and go through kind of a presentation that I do. And by the way, this is the beauty of Rotary. And I think Juliet hit it on the mark when she said, you know, through Rotary, you learn lots of things that you can apply in your own life, in your own leadership, in whatever role you play, even if, you know, in your community, in your family, in your business, in your profession. And I think, so what I'm going to give you now is something that through Rotary you get for free. If you came to your business, you'd be costing you lots of money. So this is one thing I'll remind people. That's the beauty of Rotary. We'll give these skill sets, we'll give all of this from my heart to yours, just to feed it, to really to serve and help us as Rotarians. But you can apply these principles to any aspect of your life, literally. So it's not unique, but are we gonna contextualize it in a Rotary club or Rotary district, and you can see how this actually applies. So I know you guys, the DGE stream have the power of this thing. So if I'm given an opportunity to share my I can do that. If you don't mind, let me see. Where is that?
Yeah, let me know if you're having any problems. You should be able to share. I clicked.
If you gave me the thing, I think I will.
I have clicked multiple participants can share, so we should be good.
Oh, you did? Oh, that means don't tell everybody. Now everyone's gonna be sharing something in the middle of all of this. So let me just make sure that, okay, give me half a second, please. I love technology. Here. Okay. I hope it goes directly there. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Look at that from the first click even. Hi.
Good job.
Thank you. Okay, so now let's start with this. And by the way, I mean, I'll be happy after this. I mean, you can we can send you this presentation if you want later. You guys can have it. You can take notes as we go, and I'm very open to Q&A. I'm not going to speak for the whole hour, by the way. So I was informed you have so much time to speak, and then allow for discussion and dialogue. Right, Juliet?
You are correct.
Okay. She will stop me at the half hour. She's like, okay, Nabil, thank you for sharing. But I'll do my best to kind of to put it together. So so the first thing I think, if you don't mind, this is going to be a bit interactive, so I don't want to give a kind of a speech and walk away from you. But one of the things, and Juliet said, really use the chat for this. The first thing I want to ask you actually is this. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of conflict? And don't try to be politically correct. Just whatever comes to your mind, just put in the chat. Put just 2 seconds. Type something. Conflict is like, what, a stomachache, I don't know, or a war or whatever. Just what comes to your mind when you think of. And Juliet, if you don't mind, if just read some things for me, just because I think I need to focus on the.
Okay. Difference of opinions, disagreements, anger, stress, masks and vaccines, after school fights, frustration, bullying, nails on a chalkboard.
Wow.
Different expectations, war, tension, excuses, blame.
Okay, there's a lot there. And I'm sure you can continue and have more and more of these. But if you ask yourself the question, what is the dominant thing in our response to conflict? When we think of conflict, we think of negative things. You know, we may say something neutral, like, you know, differences of opinion, but some of the stuff that we're talking about, conflict, in so many ways, because we think about it in a negative fashion, what tends to happen is our response to it is never appropriate. Just hear this, please. Because we think of conflict as a negative thing, our response to it, by and large, is not appropriate. Either we overreact or underreact. Either we just simply get very frustrated and, you know, get very upset, or we go, oh my gosh, that Juliet, she's going to be the incoming governor. I better be nice to her. I don't like what she said, but I'll say, well, thank you for sharing. And under my breath, I'll call her names. You know, there's a lot of that, just kind of, so either underreact or overreact, versus to appropriately react to something. Because for most of us, and this is part of, it's not just unique to Rotary, but for lots of people in Rotary, we don't want to escalate conflict. We don't want to make things worse. So we tiptoe a lot many times. Of course, we have some of us, bless us all, that some of us are quite assertive, but most people, they don't want to rock the boat. So we tend to underreact to conflict. And what happens, the reality though, is we have a lot of issues. And I think some of you know me from other things that have in Rotary, but part of it, I've been asked by the zone, which is like, you know, Canada and parts of the United States, is actually to come up with the program for all the incoming leadership in Rotary in those regions. I don't know how many, I think 50 districts or something, that to try to help incoming governors and governors nominees and different leaders in to put a program together. Actually, we're starting it in March, to help to deal with conflicts that, guess what, somebody triggered me and said, somebody says masks and vaccines, because we have a lot of challenges with clubs. Forget the actual mask and vaccine, but the whole, what do we do post-COVID? How are we gonna come back together? Some people have already are full back in as we have done before. Some are in the middle, some have not moved at all. Some have strong opinions about this. And look, guys, Rotary, we are, I keep saying to people, we are a reflection of the society we live in. We're not some ivory tower people hide somewhere. We are the community, and there's a lot of issues around this. And it's just not about that. It's just about, who we are and how we meet and how we engage and how we take care of each other and how we respect each other's opinions and all of those things that are happening. And I think lots of leaders in Rotary, down to the club presidents and members, they're struggling. They don't know how, it's like, sorry for my language, it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. Whatever you do, you're gonna have somebody who's not gonna be happy with you. So I think it's important when you look at conflict, look at it at face value. What are we dealing with? And I really want to spend some time today with you to really help you, regardless of what the issue is, regardless what the challenges are. Fundamentally, conflict is a difference. It doesn't have to become war or hate or whatever. It's a difference of wants, needs, and expectations. That's it. So if you think of this, I always tell people, we need to clarify where's this difference coming from? What is the underlying issue for the conflict? If I have different wants and different needs and expectations of something, and it's different than yours, we're gonna have a conflict. How I handle it is the issue, not that the fact we have a conflict. We always will have this, and you have to distinguish between those things. I come in and I expect things to, in my mind, like, let's take this. I know it's a hot potato, but let's say, okay, we have gone through all of this with COVID. Now it's time to come back. As far as I'm concerned, we're done. Somebody else will say, you know what? We better be cautious. We better kind of do what we call even those hybrid meetings. Like, if you can come in person, fine, but the person who can't, maybe we should just do it remotely. Somebody says, no. Nobody's ready for this. This is still going on. It must be we have to go virtual. So these are real issues here. This is not, and we can go through this, but we can talk about it in a constructive way. But as long as we don't, here's the thing, as my wife always reminds me, you can disagree without being disagreeable. Meaning we don't have to be disrespectful. We don't have to be attacking. We don't have to get belligerent. We don't have to get upset with it, but we can keep it to the issue. And I've always been very mindful in Rotary to remind people to say, you have to be soft on people, hard on the issue. If you have strong conviction, share it, but you don't have to actually be overly aggressive with people with that. Just the capacity to listen and think, but you have to be able to actually analyze and think about things. But to me, this is so foundational, because what tends to happen is this, because it's really clear. The reason we call it a conflict cycle. This happens in all parts of our lives. So it's not unique, but if you think about it, if you come in and think we're gonna have a fight here, your attitude and expectation about the conflict. If I'm walking with the mindset, you know what? I'm not listening. I'm right. You're wrong. And my way or the highway. And you guys are a bunch of stupid, tell you what. And I know what I'm talking about. It has to go in this direction. Already that attitude in itself creates a conflict. It doesn't matter what the issue, but if you come in with the attitude about that I am here, my job is to convince you of the rightness of my position and the wrongness of yours. That's a problem. Versus I am here to find a solution. But honestly, guys, I know it sounds so simplistic, but it's so hard to come with that attitude. I am here for us to find a solution that we can all live with and respect each other through. That's really my underlying, and not just in talk, but in action. Versus coming with, so the attitude matters when you walk into a conflict, because conflict will happen and then your response will be evident. If I'm coming looking for a solution, my whole attitude toward conflict changes, because then I listen to you, because I really want to come up with something that we all can live with. But if I'm coming in to convince you that I'm right and you're wrong, then look what happens. It becomes perpetual. You go into conflict, response is aggressive, they reinforces the attitude. They'll say, oh, he's Nabil. Oh gosh, what an ass. Here he go again. You know, he's insensitive, he's this, he's that. Or, you know, he just doesn't listen and goes back again. The expectation kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think coming in to any of our issues, and especially in our, because I keep reminding everybody, because we are volunteers, we have to be very mindful of this. You can't lord over somebody. And I would, all due respect to anybody positioning you, if you're a governor or a president, we are what we call in my world, we are servant leaders. We are not bosses. We're not bosses of anybody. We help, we facilitate, we prod, but sometimes, yeah, you have been you choose us to be leaders. We don't come in through, you know, there's always elections, there's always a selection process to get you there. And I think, to me, it's, we want to facilitate this. We want people to be able to engage in a respectful way, because it doesn't serve anybody for us to come in with a negative attitude to the issues and then go through this cycle again and again and again. By the way, we always wonder, remember we had these discussions about membership and numbers and stuff like that. And, you know, how come sometimes we lose people and stuff like this? I tell you, we don't call it conflict. Oh, you know, so-and-so left, they were not happy. Not happy means they had a conflict. If somebody had, yeah, if you moved away to greener pastures, fine. You moved to another city, fine. But even then, it happened to me. I moved to cities and I waited a couple of years and I joined another Rotary club. But because I didn't leave I just left because my business moved, so I moved with it. But ask the question, tell me why people leave. And underneath it all, something they didn't like, there is something going on in the club. We have some people, for example, who are, and I'll talk about them more and more in terms of, you know, who again are not as welcoming. They're welcoming in name only, but you walk into some clubs you walk into and you have people who do this. I swear to you, like sit like this. And I'm going, hello to you too. And they sit at their table. They have the designated tables. And I've had that in my own clubs. We have had that. So I raised heck and I go, really? If I'm coming in and you already have designated tables, so and people literally they want to sit with their friends, and I'm going, how you welcome a stranger then? Somebody walks in here and they have to look around. What the heck do I sit? How inviting we are and how we engage people. Or you have people who even interrupt speakers. I've seen that in my own club, who say, and literally they're rude. Say, whoa, wait a minute. Why are you saying that? I'm going, shut up. And after I've said that, you know, shut. And I'm people who are my elders. I mean, I'm not saying it just, I'm going, no, this is a guest in our house. This is a guest in our club. You can't talk to them like this. And so sometimes I think it's really important for us. People watch this and people see, are they being engaged, are being involved? And sometimes they're going, I don't need this in my life. It's a volunteer thing. I have other things to do. I'm not staying. So they vote with their feet and they leave. Remember, we talk about the revolving door. It's not the issue. We're not getting people. People come in, but many people stay for a couple of years and they leave. I don't know if you have that in your clubs, but in lots of clubs I deal with, there's a lot of this. We have people, the stalwarts, who have been there for a long time, you know, like, and I think at the same time, we have some people who have, but that people, we need people to stay past the 5-7 years. So then we'll have them, you know. It's like marriage. You see, after, if you stick beyond these years, you're going, there's a higher likelihood of survival. But if you, within 2 years, 2-3 years is very rough. And I think you have to look at that in Rotary too, how we can keep people. But But I think a lot of it though is that we talk about different expectation and needs. We're not meeting people's needs and we're not meeting their expectations. And that's why people leave. So we have to think of it not as a conflict, as this kind of a conflict, but conflict of needs and expectation. I'm going, what can we do to make sure that the person stays, or the people who are with us and quality people we have, they don't walk away on us, because we have to keep asking the question. And that's what this process is about. Keep asking what's going on, what's happening, and really deal with the issues in a constructive way. So this is I think the kind of the bed of all of this, kind of the bedrock for us to kind of build on. One thing that I'm always very mindful in when I come in to look at any conflict situation, and especially in Rotary, is ask the question, what type of conflict am I dealing with? And this is really very critical, guys. And I really want you to kind of, hopefully you pay attention to everything, but this is you have to pay attention to. But the idea though is, like, you come in, unfortunately, when I get invited in, it's already, things have gone really badly, for lack of a better term. And they don't bring me in when things are just kind of happy-go-lucky. When issues are really serious, they need some support. And then the international directors or whoever, or people will say, Nabil, we need you to help us with this or that. But if you think about this, I walk in and I ask the staff, what is the source of this conflict? Where is it coming from? So the first one is systemic. And systemic conflict are those from outside of the control and the purview of the club itself or the district itself. Case in point, systemic is our dealing with COVID is systemic. This is not about your club. You and many, 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 many other Rotarians and clubs around the world are dealing with this. So the idea, though, this is an external reality, is impacting us. Sometimes I have dealt with issues now and again, and with my, by the way, I have lived in both Canada and US, so I'm confessing. So I have loyalties to both countries. I know you guys just, so, and in the last year, I had to come into clubs that have conflicts over politics, that these friends who have been friends for 20, 30 years in Rotary are really in bad places, because political affiliation and the polarization of again, not of the club, the polarization of society, the polarization of our political discourse have gone to the point that it started impacting, seeped into clubs and how people deal with this. And it was even who you invited. Did you invite this politician or that politician? You shouldn't invite that one. You should invite this one. It was amazing. Not amazing in a good way, but I thought, wow. So to try to come in, but do we have systemic? So we have to understand, where is our conflict coming from? And if we know it's systemic, then we'll actually have to treat it that way, that we're not unique, we're not different. So all what we can offer one another for this is not fixing the systemic stuff, because this is beyond our capacity, but how we maneuver it, how we manage it, how we deal with it in our club. But we cannot deny it or say it doesn't exist. No, it does. The reality, it's out there, it's there. But how we need to ask, and we set clear, and remember this, please, we need to set clear ground rules in our clubs and districts and say, here's how we handle situations like this. Not to name it, but when we have issues like that, we'll make sure we'll have a discussion, we'll have a dialogue, we'll address these things. And we said some way, so we always talk, the reason most people join Rotary, because we say it's apolitical, a-religious. It doesn't mean people are in it are not political or religious. It's just that we don't bring this stuff in. This is why somebody with my background can go to a war zone, and people who see me, I used to do stuff, again, for the US State Department around the, different parts of the world. And I would actually engage people in talking about this. And I will just simply have to say to them, and Rotary and non-Rotary, that these are systemic issues. But at the end of the day, if we treat each other with respect, And again, you don't have to agree with me, but here's who we are and here's what we want to do. And I think it's really important for people to understand there's systemic issues outside your control. All what you can hope for is actually cope with them. The next level is what we call structural issues. And structural issues have a lot to do, and happens quite often for us in Rotary. I literally just yesterday, somebody said to me, Nabil, we have not looked at our bylaws for 20 years. And we use them as a kind of literally a whipping thing with people. If we don't like something, we'll say, well, the bylaw said this. I'm thinking, this is 20 years ago. The world has changed in 20 years. Nobody has looked at them, and the people use it willy-nilly, and it doesn't make sense. Some of this stuff is outdated, doesn't make any sense, and it's really silly. But sometimes it's out of really, not out of malice, it's just out of laziness. Ugh, you have to go through this now because it's work. And so sometimes we're not in agreement with the rules and the structures. We had another club I'm dealing with now that they used to have like 100 people. So listen to this. They have a board of 15 people. The club now is down to like 27 people. And they're struggling with saying, we can't have, people not volunteer to be on the board. I'm going, 15 out of 27, really? Well, our bylaws said that. I'm going, change the freaking bylaws, have 5 people. Like, why do you have to have that? And they said, look at you kind of funny. Well, but what? So it's really, sometimes our structures sometimes don't make sense. And you have to ask yourself that question. We can't do this and can't do this and have this and do. And I think it's forget personalities. You have to look at how are we structured to today? Are we structured to deal with the world around us today? Are we structured in a way that, remember we talked about retention and inviting people, because in some clubs, and I say one club I used to belong to, stay nameless, actually the structure was committees ran the club. The president really had no power. Zero. You are there, good. You are like the cheerleader. Like, you talk about ceremony. Some countries have ceremonial presidents and kings and queens, like they say hello and wave their hand, but everything is run by other people. I'm not saying good or bad, but it's interesting to walk in and saying the structure. So when somebody wants to be president, they think, I'm gonna impact change. I'm gonna make a difference. And they go, excuse me? No, that's not your domain. You shut up and follow what we tell you. And on the flip side, you have clubs that the president becomes, the almighty. They walk in and they want to things and agitate lots of people. Forget personalities, is the structure. So before remember, all of this so far, we're not talking about people. We're talking about things that impact you in a very real way. And we have people, for example, with this structure. And always I have to tell people, I know some of you may be shocked. I was reminded again and again, we always say to people, in Rotary, we do not have a Rotary police. Just remember that, please. So in a sense, we have structures. These are guides. These are things that people tell us to stay within your lane. Don't get out of this, but we have lots of flexibility. But some people, I swear to, I have a person in my district, bless him or her, that they literally quote by like rules, like section 7.32 says, and I'm going, really? Like, who cares? But I don't say that publicly, but that sometimes they follow this again. So you have to be mindful. The third one is relational. And this is the hardest one for us as Rotarians, because this is when really it's a person and how they behave. It's not about structure. It's not about rules. It's not about position. Juliet is in my screen. So it's really Juliet and how the minute she opens her mouth, I cringe. And I'm going, oh God, here she goes again. I have to listen to this. Are you serious? Because, again, let's say either she's too nice or too aggressive, or too this or too that. And it's not. And the reality though is I always tell people, we don't have to be the same. We have to respect that we are different than one another, but people literally, some of us are very verbose. He's one. But I need to learn sometimes to shut up and just bite my tongue and not say anything, because, the best thing in sometimes is just not to say something. But I feel like I have to share. I have to engage you. And you have some people who sit there like a poker face, say nothing. You have no idea what they're thinking, but all they just, but they may give you these facial expressions like, and they do, I'm going, oh gosh, now what? And it's very agitating but this is who we are. Sometimes how we are just different. So we talk about accepting differences and our diversity and all of that. And we talk about diversity and inclusion. I tell people, diversity and inclusion doesn't only have to be cultural and big stuff and all of those that we talk about. It's you and I are just different. Doesn't matter what, if you have, like, I look at my wife and my wife's come a family, they just don't talk about, they don't have arguments. They're always very pleasant to each other and very polite. And I come from a family is like, unless you cry, we haven't talked about it. So imagine we get together, we start to have a discussion. I'm going, so what's wrong? What's going on? Did I say something wrong? Did I say do it? No, nothing. I'm going, what do you mean nothing? But you seem to be upset. You know what, Nabil, the best thing to do is just shut up. I'm going, oh crap, what am I supposed to do with this? Relational stuff is real. And we always come because we are different. And in our clubs, we have to understand and appreciate very much when we are different, we have to actually deal with it at that level. And in Rotary, we tiptoe around this so much, and we have to challenge some behavior. Some people really misbehave. And I have to tell you, the way they talk to each other is is un-Rotarian. Conduct unbecoming. And we use it in the military. I think sometimes we have to tell Rotarians, this is conduct unbecoming. And, you cannot engage and talk this way. Sometimes it's positional, and sometimes it's very much. Remember we talked about that people, or what they literally, they are not, they read, how should I say this? They disagree, but listen to this, not on person, they disagree over interpretation of something. They'll say, for how many times we sat with people and they'll say, well, we're supposed to do this and this, and your job is to do this. And they say, well, no, your job is to do that. And they disagree over how to do something. And that is not as big of a conflict, because if you have goodwill, you can actually clarify this. Because somebody says, well, Juliet as an incoming governor say, I think, well, my job is to come and help you fix this. And they say, hey, no, you can't come and fix me. If I invite you to my club, you can come. Otherwise, back off. And there's a really disagreement. So you have to kind of settle that and make sure that you're clear on this. But much of our conflicts, guys, 80% of our conflicts are imperceptual. A lot of it comes out of misunderstanding, lack of communication, what I call legacy issues, that we have inherited from past leadership, past issues in the club that nobody dealt with, nobody addressed. And you come in and you're trying to be this new fresh thing, and they look at, and it just, people, literally the perception of who's who and what is what. It could have been based in an experience. Maybe people will tell me, well, we can't talk to so-and-so. Why? In 1982, and I'm going, gracious Lord, 1880, that's 40 years ago. I tried to work with Fred, and he was horrible. I tell you, I cannot believe the man, and he's now going to be a DGN. Can you believe that? I can't work with him. Serious? 40 years ago? And it could be nothing, but yet we form these opinions about each other. Poor Fred going, you're under the list under Juliet. So I'll pick on you now. But if you think about this, look at these things that people built up over time. So if you look at all of this, these are things you have to look at before you come to deal with any conflict. So if you understand this, you do this. And one piece I want to finish with, and then we can open it up a bit. And I'll two things, but I'll do this fast, and I'll get to you. How much time do I have now? I'm still Juliet.
Yeah, you actually have until 10:15, so you have quite a bit of time.
Okay, I'll take my time now. I'll take a snooze. No, but I'll just. Okay, here we go. The next thing you have to look at. First, you said what type of conflict I have. Where is it at? This is, I tell you, it's mind-boggling. In our businesses, we tell people. I want to think. Some of you who like numbers, this will help you and see this. The difference is this: the cost of your conflict. I'm serious. The cost of your conflict. When the conflict is productive, it's $100. When the conflict gets personalized, it's $1,000. When the conflict is hostile, it's $10,000. When the conflict is polarized, it's $100,000. It's in that scale. It is in that scale. So when companies and governments and all hire us, and I always tell them this, by the way, it's not just $10. Good thing it's the ratio that you need to look at. But if you ask me to come in and deal with the polarized conflict, it literally, if you have any sizable organization of few hundred people or whatever, it starts at 100,000 plus. Before they ask any questions. But if you come in and you say, we have some issues, but we would like to address them. You know what I can do? If you have a productive conflict, meaning people, there's still trust and there's still communication and there's some rumblings, there was misunderstandings and people are just there's a discomfort, but it's only started. It hasn't escalated yet, all of that. Or what I can recommend to people, here's a book, or some speech somebody gave somewhere on YouTube or something like that. Innocuous, nothing very, you can look at that, read it, take a look at it. It'll give you some tools, some ideas, go to a lecture on this or a seminar on this. And guess what? That's all some people are needing some tools to help them address an issue. Think of it that way, just a tool. That's what they're looking for. Here's the problem with conflict. As long as productive and all of that, it happens. In life, we have disagreements, all of this. The minute, this is what some of the biggest challenges we start facing. It got personalized. So let's say there's a conflict between Rod Fraser and Michael Hansen. You're on my screen, guys. Sorry, that's just a pick on you. Now, these two, they had an issue, over, I'm making something innocuous, being on time, starting the meetings on time, because, Rod is a stickler for starting on time, and Michael is my wishy-washy, goes, I don't know, start 5 after, 10 after, big deal. And Rod is really agitated. Now, we can sit down, we can address it, deal with it, but here's the thing. Productive, we can sit down, work it out, because remember, there's a trust and there's communication. But it gets personalized. Rod, Michael is a lazy bum. I tell you, I cannot believe this guy. He just like always late, and it's so annoying. And Michael said, this guy is wound up way too tight. My gosh, it's a freaking meeting. Like, we're not saving the world here. Sometimes, there's traffic, sometimes this. What do you want from me? It's a freaking volunteer thing. Well, and listen to this. But look how we moved from the issue to the person. We start talking about each other as people, not about, forget the 5-10 minute thing. You're this and you're that. We personalize it. And I always tell people this: the minute you personalize a conflict is when you start losing it. And I mean it. Think of that in your life, in your family, with your spouse or partner or child or whoever. The minute you go into, will you always do this? World War III starts. What do you mean I always do it? I never do this. And all the issue is you did not like something they do. But the minute you personalize it, it becomes a problem. And with Michael and Rod's permission, I'm going to escalate it a bit. It's too boring now. This is so far, listen to this, guys. So far, the conflict is only between them. But now it has to go to a bit of a hostile, meaning we call it, in psychology, we call it triangulation. We have to triangulate. Now, Michael goes to Kay and said, Kay, let me tell you, this Rod guy, this Rod guy is really, he's not a nice man. What do you mean? Oh, he just, I tell you, he doesn't like people from whatever, I don't know, from our neighborhood. Let's say Kay is from Michael's neighborhood. I don't know. And you go, he just, and it may be true, maybe not, but Michael is trying to get some support here. You see, he's unreasonable. I cannot believe he's even a Rotarian, really, with that attitude. Rotary keeps telling us we're flexible, we're inviting, we're this, and the guy is an ass. I cannot believe, what is this? So here's the thing, Kay can do one of two things. And if she's a true Rotarian, she'll smile and say, really? Well, I guess if you think so. But she's not telling Michael, shush. You know what? If you have an issue with Rod, go speak to him. Don't talk to me. Leave me out of it, because we all Rotarian. Be more assertive because we don't want to we don't want to kind of create more conflict. So Kay's trying to be nice to Michael and says, I hear you, but she really doesn't have a strong opinion. But Michael now goes the next encounter he has with Rod, comes with ammunition. Hey, buddy, pal, it's not only me. There's a lot of people here who don't like you. I spoke to people. Listen to this. I spoke to people who don't agree with you, and they agree with me. And of course, what is Rod left with? Rod is going to go and find other people. So Rod will go to Nabil and Juliet and whoever it is and try to find some support, because you see, can you imagine all of this started over a freaking 5-10 minute issue. Now it gets built up. And you take any issue with all seriousness, take any issue in our clubs that people how things escalate. It's surreal. And it's like, it becomes, and you move on and on and on with this. But then it's not enough to go there. Then, oops, I moved to that. Then what happens, it goes to polarization. Polarizations is when we go into camps. So what has happened then, we start getting people to take sides. I call the on-time people and the flexible people, or it depends how you see them. So now I'm going to add some names. So we're going to have a camp. So Sharon, Kathleen, Daryl, Glenn are in one team. And then Rod, Lorenda, Ricardo, Linda, and Mary on another team. So we have these people some will be, if you think about this, some will be on what we call Rod's people, and some will be Michael's people. It doesn't take much, guys, for this to happen. And we see that in any groupings you are in clubs. This will be, you walk in, things have been built up over the years. And remember, they forget what started it. All what they know is those people, those. And with us in Rotary, we don't do it like in the public. We just kind of people going, yeah, good morning to you too, and it's like it got built up over time. Think of that in your families, with lots of family feuds or disagreements, in your businesses, in your work, in your communities, and the political sphere. At polarization, I see you in the context of the conflict I have with you. You're on that side. The minute you open your mouth, I actually dismiss you. Think of that. The minute you open your mouth, I dismiss, because you are on the other side. Whoever that, politically, philosophically, religiously, community-based, whatever, add anything. Behavior, people literally start treating each other as the other, not is the we. It's us versus them. So if you think about that, and this is sometimes is when, you know, in relationships, when sometimes I'm not a pro divorce, but sometimes I tell people, please, you know, it's like, it's got to the point that there's no, it's so polarized. Nobody's seeing even the humanity of the other. And you have to, you know, and sometimes in clubs, we have some people who really get very agitated, very angry and very unhappy. They may not identify it out loud, but if you go talk to their families, they'll say, this person is very unhappy in Rotary. And I don't know what they're saying. So your spouse or partner will say to you, you know what, just get out of it. You don't need this in our lives. It's too stressful for you. Move. So this is what polarization happens. So I want to beg you, please, the minute you start feeling agitated to the personal level, deal with it. Talk to somebody. If you can't talk to the person, reach out to somebody and say, you know what, I'm really struggling with Nabil. He's quiet, he agitates me, he annoys me, he starts talking and he pontificates, doesn't listen to me, doesn't show me respect, or take what, you know, and if I, you know, before we start resenting me, reach out to somebody for help, advice, you know, maybe they have pieces of wisdom they can offer you, somebody they may know Nabil better than you do, or can seem to get along with him nicely. So you try to find a way to do that. So before it goes to this, but the minute we start complaining to other people about each other, the third level hostility is very hard to undo. It becomes very, very difficult. And generally in our society, that's what tends to happen. We move to here to hostile. It doesn't go very easy from hostile into polarization. And then we have camps. And by the way, they don't have to be like, you know, war, but it's like, you know, imagine you be go to a club and you walk in and you don't feel energy. You don't feel excited. You don't feel happy. You're feeling like, I'm doing it out of duty, but not out of really wanting to be there. And it's just draining. And it sometimes you leave a meeting drained, not energized. And Rotary should never be about draining you, ever. Yeah, you have a situation, maybe you get upset about, but as a culture, small c culture of an organization, of a body, I think you get to that level that we really have a problem. So you need to start looking at this early. And if you say that, and if you see some people agitated, reach out to them, talk to them, don't ignore them, and don't say none of my business. Rotary is all our business. Membership is all our business. People's well-being is all our business. It really does matter. And all what you can do is just reach out, because some people suffer in silence. Some people I hear like they have been struggling and having issues for years, and they didn't feel they have any voice. And by the time we come in, unfortunately, sometimes it's a bit too late, and you know, or is a lot of work needed to kind of bring them back to some level of functionality. Okay, so these are things that I want you to kind of consider when you look at these things. And in our Rotary context, it's very, very critical for us to do that. Does that make sense to people? I'm going to put you on my just screen. I want to see this or this. I need to hear nod. I need to see, not hear him. I need to see a yes or no.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I'm seeing some nod and thumbs up. Thank you, Tom. Tom gave me the thumbs up, and now that's. But this is really critical, I think, for us, just to keep asking ourselves these kind of questions, because this has to make sense to you. I mean, I know because I live it every day. This is what I do, but I think it's important for you. How does this register for us? As I said, this applies to your family. This applies to your work. This applies to Rotary. So if you can think about this and look and how this kind of, how it escalates and goes into places. But now I want to talk to you about something a bit fun that has to do, okay, how do we people, is the thing, all of this now about the issue. Now we talk about how people tend to deal and handle conflict in a very unique, different way. My wife and I, Gail, who's Juliet, she's a Rotarian as well, and she does her own, you know, she's an executive coach. She does coaching for different leaders around the world and stuff. And so we wrote a book years ago. It's called Conflict is for the Birds. And we have an assessment tool, became a bestseller and all that lovely stuff. So we actually identified your behavior as in how you handle conflict as an individual now, and the choices you need to make in terms of birds. And it's actually quite if you can see it. Oops, this is the book. It's coming. You see it? Yeah, that's the book. And there's assessment tools. You can actually identify, find out what kind of bird you are. So we have done this, and now the book is going in 3rd edition actually. But so it's interesting. We decided, rather, because conflict is not easy thing to talk about, especially in different situations. A lot of and lots of businesses, companies, and organizations, and community organization, and even government organization we work with, they don't like to talk about conflict. It's very uncomfortable. So we said, you know what? This is years ago. We came up with this. Here's how you tend to deal with conflict. And we had a graduate student actually many moons ago. She actually had to go around and do research about behaviors of, by the way, I'm not a birder. I wish I was. Everybody assumed that we did this because we love birds. It just, we wanted something that is, by the way, culturally not offensive to people wherever they are. Or we needed something that can actually explain things in a way that people understand. So think of this. The issue is what we call it, focus on self and focus on others, or, assertiveness or cooperativeness, if you look at that. So the first one is by the way, this is based on theory too. So it's not just the birds are, but this is on Mouton. He wrote books on management in the 60s and talk about the different, how people tend to handle things. But not in conflict, but in terms of how people approach things. But that's the idea is, you have a woodpecker. A woodpecker says, and if you think about it, they found that sometimes after forest fires, that they will see woodpeckers with singed feathers still working on the tree, because they need to make that, they need to get that worm, they need to get the job done. So woodpeckers are very big. They are noisy, single-minded, tenacious, and utilitarian. My way is do it my way, or it's like my way or the highway. It is. I know I'm right. You know what? Admit it. I know my business. I am right, and they're very assured of it. So they're not they don't come in and ask you, what do you think? No. I'll tell you what to think. Here's the issue. You understand? The problem is this, and here's the solution. Am I clear? And they are, if they don't get their way, they are tenacious. They'll tire you out. And they keep repeating the same thing again and again. Even though if it's not true, you start believing it to be true, because they just hammer and hound you to a point that you're going, okay, fine, do it then. Because they know the best way to get to you is actually by doing this. And at the same breath, though, listen to this though, this is very critical. Woodpeckers are utilitarian, meaning if they know the hammer, it doesn't work, they're going, change strategy. Because Juliet, if I tell her something about, whatever, praise her, say something good about her car, or if I say something good about her, whatever, her children or her partner or whatever, then she'll melt. She'll just, so they'll come and say, Juliet, I'm really, you must be very, very proud. That car you bought, state of the art. I'm so, and by the way, they don't tell you what about your car at all. All what they want is to want to win. So they'll try to do this just to get your cooperation. So woodpecker behavior, and some of us, by the way, I'm not asking for confessionals here. I'm not telling you what you are. This is for your own reflection. And by the way, we're not one all the time. Clear on this. These are behaviors. These are not personalities. So don't start judging each other. Don't go there. But some of us literally have comfort zones with some of these things. Some are more prone to be woodpecker. And I want to share this with you just because you get a sense of what the people around you and who you are and why sometimes we have issues. Because we have, and I'm sure if I asked you, you're going to tell me, oh, woodpecker is Jim and Peter and Jane and John and da. Or you can start naming people in your life who act like woodpeckers. That's number one. The second one is the owl. Owl is the one who feels the mission in life is to be engaging, respectful, make sure that everybody gets a chance to participate. The people who feel like, whoever came up with the term, do not leave no stone unturned, dot every I, cross every T, is an owl. Because they want to make sure, it's things are fair. They're very aware of what's going on. They want to make sure everybody's engaged. They come to a meeting. Okay, everybody shared? Oh, you know what? We haven't heard from Jim yet. Jim, can you please tell us what you think? And they really want to make sure that everybody is involved in it. So owls are very about talking things over, coming up with collective solutions to problems. So, but owls tend to be a bit of a talkers, because sometimes my joke about owls, they like to hear themselves talk because it's really important for them to keep engaging people. And they'll say, and what do you think? And what do you think? And people going, I shared already with you. I have nothing to say, but I'm sure there's some more you would like to share with us, don't you? But the owls are very much going in that direction. Then you have hummingbirds. Hummingbirds are those, I call them the negotiators. These are the ones who will say to you, I'll give a little if you will. If I do this, would you do that? If I do this, would you do that? And the hummingbirds, how they say about the hummingbird is the only bird that can fly backwards. They go up, down, backward, forward, up, like you cannot pin them down. And there's some people who are just, they're not gonna, they keep asking, they keep what you call trial balloons. They'll say, if we go in this direction, would you agree with it? Is that where you want to go? No, I'm just asking. So they're always trying to check things out and see how far you go. They're always negotiating. Remember this word, hummingbirds, and some of us are very much, this is what the comfort level. They're quick, hovering, flexible, and energetic because they get energized with conflict, because they feel like, we can just find some maybe possible solutions here. Let's do this. If you do this, I'll do that. Can we do this? And you're trying to find middle ground. You're trying to find something that people can be partially satisfied with. So think of this already. We spoke of 3 of them. Imagine these 3. They create conflict in themselves. If I'm walking into a meeting and we have a discussion on our argument, imagine one walks in as a woodpecker. It has to be this way. That's the answer. Somebody says, well, excuse me, but we really need to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to share. Share. Why do we have to talk? We know what the solution. You want to gonna waste 3 hours now talking about this? Here we go again. What do I need to do this for? And the hummingbird comes and says, okay, may not be 3 hours. How about an hour and a half? Because trying to find a middle ground. Because the woodpecker, 5 minutes. 5-minute discussions, plenty enough. The owl, 2-3 hours. The hummingbird between half hour to hour and a half. Think of the mindset walking in. We're not talking about the issues, that how people walk in creates conflict in itself. So think about, I'll tell you a bit about personal relationships, which makes it very funny. But in terms of being in a meeting in our context in Rotary, imagine those kind of dynamics. Then you have the ostrich. The ostrich says, conflict? What conflict? It's just very uncomfortable. Well, why do we have to bring this issue? It's not a big deal, really. Like okay, so so and so wants this, but you know what? Let's just avoid the topic altogether, because if we bring it up, it's going to agitate everybody. People are going to have heated argument and all of this. Let's just not go there. So the ostrich really wants to avoid the conflict at all costs. Just does not want you to go there. And in their mind, they literally, and sometimes, guess what? What ostriches do? They actually literally extract themselves from the situation because they don't want to be part of it. They say, you know what? Okay, guys, I'm out of here. I can't. I'm logging out, or I'm walking away. I'm not doing this because it's just too much. So they literally avoid the topic completely. But then you have the parakeet. and the parakeet. The parakeet's mission in life is to be nice to people. These are the ones who will come in. Okay, guys, I am sure you know it's something we all will find a way to get along. I'm sure. I think I feel there's so much love in this room. I'm not exaggerating. But I think we just need to find a way to really kind of lower the dial a bit and just be kind to each other. We don't have to talk about this now. Just kind of, and they really want to be friendly. They're talking, they want to agreeable, and they want the relationship not to go sour. That's what they care about. So imagine you have a meeting and you have these 5 characters. Just think about that. Can you see these 5? I mean, don't tell me, but imagine these 5 in a room. That in itself creates a lot of challenge just because, and imagine if you are a leader or a parent or a responsible person, whoever, that is actually supposed to deal with these behaviors all at the same time. Think of this, and you're supposed to be, quote unquote, the one who's supposed to get all the discussions going, and you want to support, and you have these 5 dynamics happen. So now, if you think about it, guess who the woodpecker, guess who the woodpecker likes to deal with? Think for yourself. Who you do think? Just say it out loud if you can, just as you can unmute a bit. Who you think woodpeckers like to deal with? Don't be shy. Sorry?
The parakeet. With the parakeet.
The parakeet. Anybody else?
Probably parakeets and ostriches.
Yeah. I tell you, woodpeckers, by and large, tell you that they like to deal with other parakeets. They're lying. They don't like other parakeets because woodpeckers tell you they like to deal with other woodpeckers. They're lying because bottom line is woodpeckers like to win. If there's another woodpecker in the room, it's going to be a problem. They tell you, I would rather have people who just say it as it is. No, you don't, because you want to have your opinion. You don't want to hear anybody else's opinion. And as you guys shared, they love parakeets. The woodpecker say jump, and the parakeets, how high? So parakeets are very amenable, very nice, and the woodpecker feels like she or he is a king or queen, And some people surround them. By the way, some woodpeckers, I've dealt with it for 30 years, 33 years, actually surround themselves with parakeets. They surround themselves with people who don't challenge them, who you say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. And they walk around going, everybody loves me. Look at this. I am a leader, because nobody challenges you, because you surround yourself with a bunch of parakeets or people who learn to be parakeets with you, because otherwise they'll be bulldozed. So, here's the thing. They don't like owl behavior, because owls are blabbermouths, talk too much. They want to engage everybody. They just can't wait for the owl to shut up. They don't trust the hummingbird because they see the hummingbird is manipulative, because the hummingbird says, so what do you think about this? And the woodpecker, should be done this way. Well, yeah, I see possibilities. They're not agreeing with you, but they get very annoyed and agitated with this. I said they love the parakeet, but they get really annoyed with the ostrich, because they come in, let's say you agreed, like the day before, you come in, and to say to somebody, like at 4 p.m., you'll say to somebody, I want you to take care of this by tomorrow morning, okay? This is a woodpecker to an ostrich. Remember, the ostrich said, whatever. The ostrich has no intention whatsoever of doing it. Ask the woodpecker at 8 p.m., what's going to happen tomorrow morning? Well, the ostrich is going to give me what I asked. I said, by tomorrow, 10 o'clock, I'm expecting this. He's going to have it ready for me. Guess what? The next morning comes in, and the woodpecker comes to the ostrich, where is it? And the ostrich says, what is what? I told you I wanted this by 10 o'clock. Did I say yes? I never said yes. So buzz off. And of course, then conflict builds up. So here's the reality of this. And please remember this, to a woodpecker, unless you say no to them, unequivocal no, it's a yes. And the ostrich, unless an ostrich tells you yes, it's a no. Be clear on this. With the wood, if you tell the woodpecker, maybe I'll think about it, in their mind, it's a yes. An ostrich, if they tell you, maybe, no, it's a no. Unless they say yes to you, it's a no. So think about those two behaviors. Now look at owls. Guess who owls like to deal with?
Parakeet also.
I'd say other owls.
They love other owls. Hi, you want to talk? You have an hour? I have two. No problem. Let's talk together. Not an issue. Wonderful. They love other owls. They don't like woodpeckers because they are annoying and very demanding. They get along nicely. They get along nicely with the hummingbird because they can negotiate and give and take with them. They actually are very friendly toward the parakeet, but the nemesis of the owl is the ostrich. Because in so many relationships, in my former life, and I'm not Shirley MacLaine, but in my former life, I used to work with couples when I started this. Oh my Lord, this was the funniest of them. It wasn't funny for them, it was funny for me. You have one person, the minute they're gonna conflict, they go into like literally hibernation. You know, they don't want to talk, they want to do this. Other person, you know what? We have an issue in our relationship, but the other person says, what issue? What's the problem? No, that's already that. What's your problem? And of course, the owl gets so agitated. What's my problem? We're not talking. When we have all these problems and you just keep, you keep going, leaving the house or going this and not, we need to sit down and talk. They said, I have no issue. What's your problem? And it blows in their faces to no ways. When you have those dichotomy, it's because the owl then, because they're frustrated, guess what they end up doing? They keep talking more. And the other one just wants to find a hole and bury themselves. I mean, they just don't want to deal with this. And you get this tension that builds. Remember the escalation we talked about? If it's not addressed, it gets really quite bad. And then, of course, they call us and say, can you help us do some counseling and stuff for people to find a way to get along? So these are the two things you have to watch for. Hummingbird. Guess who hummingbirds like to deal with? Come on. Hummingbirds, I'll tell you, hummingbirds are cocky. They like to deal with everybody because to them, it's a game. Because hummingbirds, my joke about hummingbirds, they're not willing to kill for anything, nor are they willing to die for anything. Because to them, when it comes to conflict, it depends. If it's important, I'll talk about it. If it's not important to me, I'm not dealing with it. I'm not getting all invested emotionally with all of this. So they can play along with everybody. Now, guess who the parakeet like to deal with? Come on. Parakeets love everybody. Don't you see it? Is whatever you say, they're friendly, they are talkative, everybody likes them. They're so nice to everybody. So they don't do that. And the ostrich, I'll tell you, the ostrich love other ostriches. Hi, you have a problem? No, I don't either. Thank you. Have a nice day. So the ostriches do not, and this is what some families love the ostrich because we don't talk about it. I mean, I grew up with some families around me that they grew up in a way that speaking about conflict is a horrible thing in the family. Like you just kind of tiptoe around each other and just walk away. We're not going to talk things over. So imagine now that you have all of this around you and you know these attitudes and you have to ask yourself the question, where do I go from here? So it is always be mindful. The woodpecker, you have to be not aggressive, but assertive with them. And you have to call them on behavior when it's not appropriate. The owl, you have to limit their time. You have to say to them, you know what? I don't have 3 hours. I have an hour to talk about this, or half hour. Please, can we just sit down and talk this over? We can do that without having to bring every person to the room. With the hummingbird, we have to tell them, sit down, please. Let's just focus on a couple of issues at a time. We don't want to deal with 17 issues. Just get them focused on, we have these 2 issues. Let's find a solution to that. The ostrich, give them a heads up, please. With an ostrich, do not put an ostrich on the spot, because if they put them on the spot, they will kick you. I mean, they will actually be agitated. Just don't put them on the spot. Don't say, and now we have not heard from Nabil, who we know he's an ostrich. Why you do that? Because then I have nothing to say. Come on, how come you have nothing to say? You know, you have been part of, and don't just give them a heads up, even before the meeting. Say, look, I'm gonna call on you. Do you mind just be? I mean, would love to hear you. So they actually will appreciate that so much. They'll think about it and say something, but don't embarrass them that way. And the parakeet, you have to give them, help them have some backbone. Tell them, look, we really appreciate you. Wonderful people love you, and you love everybody. But it's really important for us to know how you feel about this for yourself, not about other people, how this impacts you. So you can do all of that with people as you have these meetings. And at the end of the day, this is really the key that you want to have. I think my time is up. And I just want you to kind of really seriously think about this and take a look at it. And at the end of the day, it is really that again, it's a reality for you to deal with, to look at it, and we can spend hours and hours on this. But I really want you to kind of give you a sense of what we talk about, how we do this, and how to make this relevant in our own lives and especially in our Rotary world. That is my spiel.
Nabil, this has been fantastic. People have been private messaging me about how wonderful you are. And I think you did already address one of the questions from Amy Spots, who says, so we recognize all these different birds. So now how do we merge the differences to come to a common ground? But you did give us a summary, of it's about getting to know the personalities and characteristics of people we work with, and then adjusting based on their personality types, it appears. I don't know if you have anything else.
Absolutely. I think it's a brilliant question. I think to me, the biggest thing is we have to meet people where they're at and really, and kind of because without judgment. And I know it's hard, it's easy to say, but hard to do. But really, if somebody, especially if somebody is like a woodpecker, because it's so easy for us to dismiss them, going, "Oh, he's Nabil again. He's blabbermouth, loud." But really, kind of, I always like to spend 80% preparation and 20% engagement. Prepare people for the discussion. Talk to them ahead of time. Here's what the issues are. We appreciate there's different opinions, different, but here's the ground rules. And I'm a big person on ground rules. We're gonna have so much time. We want to make sure that we hear from people. We're going to have this much time for this much time for this. And if things, get agitated, we're going to park it. So if somebody starts dominating, we'll say, you know what? Time out. This is good. It's getting heated. Let's park it, because park it means let's cool it down. We'll come back to it. So you have to be very, what I call, intentional in how you'd run these things, because just to have a free for all, guess what? The woodpecker and the owl will be the ones talking. Everybody goes, yeah, fine. I have nothing to say here, because the woodpecker is demanding and the owl keeps saying, but we have to hear from this and this. So you end up having like a meeting, let's say 5 people dominate the whole conversation, because the parakeet is saying, I don't want to upset people. And the ostrich is going, you know what? They're crazy people. I'm not dealing with it. And the hummingbird likes to watch and goes, hey, this is interesting, and they literally kind of get a kick out of watching people doing silly things. So you have to be able to do that and engage them in that way, and allow people to engage when they're comfortable, as I said. But you give them heads up, you do all of that. That can go a long way for them to feel the permission, as we say, to engage with one another.
Well, this is fantastic. There are 27 president-elects on this call, and there are others. And on July 1st, they're going to get loads of emails in their inbox and lots of club members coming to them to say how things should be done.
Yep.
So, I guess one of the things I learned is not to be overly sensitive when people approach you about, hey, don't you want to think about doing it this way or that way? And people are fearful of change. And for us to learn more about people's leadership types and personalities, I think this is all very helpful, so that we become a little less judgmental and not as sensitive as we enter into these leadership roles, and really get a lot of feedback from people as we're moving forward.
Yeah. No, and I think you're 100% right. And I think a lot of it too is I depersonalize what people say to you. And always, as my coach used to tell me, she said, Nabil, this is their opinion. It's not about you. Just It's not about you. Don't get it personal. Don't start thinking, even if they say something good to you, don't, they bet, if they tried, some people try to kind of massage our ego when they come in. Oh, I'm so proud. I'm so happy you're president. That schmuck who was before you. I don't know why that, no. This is not about you. Don't get even, especially when even the accolades you get, don't start believing your own press clippings. Let them say what they need to say. This is their, you stick to your agenda, be respectful, listen to people, but nobody. And again, and you have, and some of the key players, some people, when I became president, some people, in those days we have no COVID, they actually invite me for lunch, a very nice lunch. And they told me what is what's going to work, what's not going to, and I'm going. And I was relatively younger when I was president. And they were, again, I looked up to these people. They're my elders. And they pretty much kind of told me, here's what works and here's what doesn't. And pretty much do as I'm telling you. And I was like, what? It was really hard to do that. It wasn't, the complainers are one thing, but the people who can, they have, and by the way, guys, PEs, I'll pray for you if you have a PDG in your club. God help you, because PDGs feel they need to pontificate and they have lots of wisdom to share. I keep my mouth shut in my club, you would not believe, on purpose. Because sometimes, I guess been there, done that, you're going, really, you want to do this? That's a dumbass move. I'm not saying anything, because I say smile and say, they need to learn. I'm not going to, but some of us have not learned that lesson, and they just, well, let me tell you. And the minute they start with that, let me tell you, you're going, oh Lord. So I think give them, I know PDs are going to hate me for this, but give them a job, please. Give them something to do, like give them something. But so this way, give them something they love to do, focus on that one. Thank you. Please, can you do that for us? But again, it's one all, of course, past presidents, we always have them, but PDGs usually they're unique group. And I confess I'm one of them, and I have to always be careful not to interject my wisdom.
That's one of the courses in the district governor training is pontificating. We can't help it. It's just, that's the way we do
I'm with you 100%. That's the thing. It just
all right, well, let's give Nabil a grand applause here for a fantastic presentation. I also want to thank Barry Buckingham. I've been texting Barry, is it okay if you start late? And Barry says, absolutely. I mean, you had
my apologies. I ate into Barry's time.
No, don't worry about it. So at this point, we are going to take a 10-minute break so you can refresh your coffee cups and do whatever. And please come back in 10 minutes and we'll hear from Barry Buckingham from the Rotary Club of